Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Welcome to Indie Eyeshadow Palette Week. Today we're talking about my favorite indie brands. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is going to be an overview of 10 of my favorite indie brands, and especially eyeshadow palette related, because that's what I try the most by indie brands. I know a lot of them do like lip products and cheek products and all those things, but I never really find that they have anything to offer that I'm interested in when it comes to complexion products, so it's eyeshadow where it's at for me when it comes to indie brands. And I just wanted to chat to you about my 10 favorite brands because I've tried quite a bit of indie eye makeup over the years, and I just thought I could rave about some of those. In case you're new here, hi, my name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences how I feel about makeup. I have been reviewing makeup for more than a decade, but I'm a teacher in real life. I love my eyeshadow palettes, essence, and Catrice, and getting the use out of my makeup, so if that's something you're interested in, then I definitely hope you would like to consider subscribing. So yes, 10 favorite indie brands, and I've taken up 10 of their products to sort of show them to you and talk about these brands. Now, I've sort of taken up my favorite product from that brand. It may have been discontinued, some of it might have been brought back. Whatever it is, I'll chat to you about it, but the brands are not ranked. It's not because I mentioned something for the first, like as the first one, it doesn't mean I don't like that as much as the others. These are just my 10 favorite indie brands, and I want to chat about them. First things first, I have these little things because I love me some Kaleidos, and especially since they've been doing these quads. These quads are currently in my eyeshadow palette review video for December, so when that one comes up next week, I think I should be posting it right before Christmas. These will be featured, and you will be finding the swatches and the looks I did with both of these. These are the Twilight Rush and the Venus Trap palettes that were launched this fall, and they do some really lovely cool tone color stories now. I mean, pretty much all of these quads have been cool toned. Like, they always do like a neutrally one and a purpley one. That's what they did last year. And the first one was like a brown tone and a like gray toned one. So this is like really nice light taupes, really nice shimmer in every single one of them. And then they do this like plummy thing. I love the formula. I have been trying Kaleidos for years now. There's a couple of things I've skipped, like I never bought the Flower Punk because I didn't love the color story. It was very similar to some Kaleidos things I already owned, so I didn't feel it necessary for my collection. And I also never bought the Deep Sea Luster or their Escape Pod, which were two of their larger palettes. But I have their collab that they did with Angelica Newquist. I have all 7 of the Futurism palettes, even though I did declutter some and I've rearranged some because those came with magnetic pans. So one of them, actually the Sci-Fi Greens, doesn't even have Kaleidos eyeshadows in anymore, but I've repressed other shades that just fit that palette perfectly. And overall, I just really, really, really love the Kaleidos eyeshadow palette formula. I have all 6 of the quads now, and I really love them. They work really well together as well. If you've never tried Kaleidos and you want to buy from them, it may be good to know that whenever you buy from them, they will calculate the shipping and handling fees in your shopping cart, so you are paying things up front and you will not be hit with an unexpected fee once the package arrives at your doorstep. It's helpful to know that Kaleidos does ship directly from China, which is where it is manufactured, and then it arrives at your doorstep, which is why the shipping and handling fees aren't as much as when Kaleidos would ship directly from the United States, because then it would be a lot more expensive, you could say. So yeah, that's definitely how I feel about Kaleidos. I really, really enjoy a lot of their products. I have their lip products. I also have some of their blushes. This is like an exception to my rule of like indie brands where I've tried more than just the eyeshadow. For most brands, I only try eyeshadow, you could say, because it can be sometimes a little bit more expensive to get, and I don't want to overload my packages, you could say. However, I have some EU-based indie brands as well that are my favorites. If you've been watching my videos this week, you will have seen me ranking all of my Glamshop eyeshadow palettes. Glamshop is a Polish indie brand, so if you're within the European Union and you're looking for indie eyeshadow quality, I would highly recommend you check them out because they are slightly more affordable. It's sort of like ColourPop price points, you could say, and they do some really, really good things. This is the Zimna Mocha, which is their very light, very cool tone color story. It's good to know, though, that Glamshop only does eyeshadow palettes as limited editions, which means that once they sell out, they're gone, and they're also gone forever. However, they do a lot of singles, and a lot of the eyeshadows they have in their palettes can be purchased as singles, or you can just wait for the next drop, because I do feel that what they release over time is like the newer version of something they used to have. So even if you missed out on this one in particular, the next time they launch some 9 pans, it could very well be that one of the color stories is not identical to this, but very similar, you could say, because they tend to be pretty good at doing something warm toned, something neutral, and then something cool toned in everything they do. They do a lot of monochromatic things as well, so they just have some really stunning things, a really amazing shimmer formula, nice blendable mattes, and I really, really dig Glamshop. Next up, the Smoke and Mirrors from Gloss Gods. This is another European-based indie brand. They are from Sweden. Again, it may be a little bit difficult to get if you're in the US, but I also want to make sure I feature some brands that are easier to get for people within the EU, so you don't have to pay shipping and handling fees. This is shipped from Sweden. It's not like Odin's Eye, where Odin's Eye is a brand that's not featured here today, but they ship from China directly, but Gloss Gods ships from Sweden, which for me, it takes about a week to get there, and their shipping is like $3.95. So for me, it's like perfect. Their eyeshadow palettes are around 40 euros each, but they do a ton of other palettes, and they are definitely a brand that's aimed more at the more creative makeup user. So they have palettes that do that, but then they also do things like this, which are super neutral and great for like people who just like something a little bit more neutral and wearable like I do. However, I have a couple of their effects palettes as well, and I love those as well. They do all shimmer effects palettes, and they're stunning, like with lots of duochromes and sparkly things, and the magpie in me loves them for that. This is the Smoke and Mirrors, which was limited edition Christmas last year. However, they are currently, where did it go? I'm filming all these videos back to back, if you can't tell. But they are currently doing the Gal on Jupiter, which is a, well, it's not similar to this. It's not as gray and purple leaning, but it's like the more neutral version of this, but still very cool toned. Let me just show you. I haven't swatched this one yet because it's just in, but this is what the Gal on Jupiter looks like. And in case you're curious and you'd like to win this, I have a giveaway up where you can win this and some of my other most favorite products of all time in a giveaway for my 10K, like hitting that benchmark a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I should say. So if you would like to win this Gloss Gods palette, then definitely check out that video. I will make sure to link it in the description box down below. Yeah, we were talking about the Smoke and Mirrors. It's just incredibly light. Gloss Gods does some really amazing shimmers. Like Glamshop, they are a brand that favors shimmers over mattes, which is what I prefer as well. So they are just a brand after my heart. I discovered them at the end of 2022, which is when I placed my first orders with them, and then I started trying everything this year, and I fell in love. And whenever they do a color story that appeals to me, I'm buying, because they're just doing some really, really lovely things, and I really dig them. I love that they are pretty available to me, like pretty easily available to me, and just not that expensive for that reason. I mean, a palette like this, including shipping and handling, is around like the 45 euro mark for me, which is what I would expect other indie brands to like pay for their palettes as well. But because I have to import them from the US, it very often gets to, you know, be a lot more expensive than it actually is. Which is why, by the way, some brands that you know I have in my collection aren't in this video today, because I'm not doing an overview of all the indie brands I've ever tried. These are my top 10 favorites, where I'm like, if you're looking into indie eyeshadow, then these are the 10 brands that I think you can look into, depending on your preferences and what you like and what you're willing to pay for things. Now, something that is more expensive to get, is Clionadh, and I'm holding up my Clionadh singles palette. These are all stained glass singles. This one is out of order, which bugs me. As you can see, I still have some space left. I could definitely make, like, fit in a couple more. I think I have space for like 13 more shades in here, which, you know, sometime next year, if they have another sale on and a giant restock, I might do that. And their stained glass shadows are what they are known for best. However, it's not the only thing I like from Clionadh. I also have a bunch of their round pan singles, but those haven't been restocked in a while, I feel. But that was like my introduction to the brand before they ever did the stained glass collection, and I've been loving them ever since. Clionadh, however, is located in Canada, and shipping from Canada, let me tell you, that's on another level. If you thought shipping from the United States was expensive, the Canadians take it to a whole nother level. So yes, it's incredibly expensive to buy from this brand, especially if you look into their multi-chromes, because multi-chromes are just more expensive to make if you look at how the eyeshadow is put together. So this is a pricey palette. Like, I paid a pretty penny for this. Because none of this was sent in PR. Full disclaimer here. I purchased everything with my own money. And this is it's just really, really lovely. This is currently in my eyeshadow palettes I want to go back to series for December, because I love pairing this with the ABH subculture, and then one of you actually recommended putting multi-chromes together with the Melt Mary Jane. And I was like, sounds like a plan. I want to do that in December. It's the festive season. If I'm going to get more use out of my Clionadh multi-chromes, it's gonna be right now. And I actually purchased a bunch of new ones over the summertime. They had a giant sale on, and they like, that's what I wait for, because if I want to buy this from Europe, I have to like place a larger order in one go just to make it worth it, because the shipping and handling fees are just so crazy. I think for one order, I pay at least 50 to 60 euros in additional shipping and handling fees, because they ship by weight. And then I also have to pay like 25 or 30 euros worth of like additional custom, maybe even more. I don't remember how much I paid for my last order, but it's pricey, but very worth it. Another brand that I think is worth it if you are a beginner in makeup and you want to try indie, but you're a little bit afraid of how pigmented and intense everything looks, I would say go with Nomad. I was sort of doubting between Odin's Eye and Nomad, but I've mentioned Odin's Eye in the past, where my conclusion is just that it's not my favorite. They can do good shadow. However, I prefer some of my older Odin's Eye palettes than some of the newer things. Ever since they've reformulated, they just haven't been my favorite. However, the Nomad Haunted Europe is one of my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. This particular one has been discontinued, but I do really appreciate that they have a more buildable formula. This is not the intense kapow in your face, super shimmery, sparkly kind of indie eyeshadow that we usually think of when we think about indie eyeshadow. This is a lot more wearable, a lot more easier to work with. It just doesn't have the learning curve that some other indie eyeshadows have. And that's why I appreciate them. I have decluttered some of my Nomad palettes over time because they weren't quite right for me, like the Tokyo Harajuku that they did. Everybody was going gaga for the shimmers in it, and I just didn't think it was anything special until I tried this. The Ghost Town USA, I bought it during their Cyber Monday sale because their entire website was 25% off. Because Nomad, again, US-based indie brand that it's the only brand I keep the boxes for because their boxes are cuter than the actual palette even. But yeah, the Nomad palettes can therefore be a little bit more expensive, but I was like 25% off, and then the shipping fee, and I think Nomad now calculates your custom fees as you are shopping on the website, which I always love because it means the package can just get to me and it won't be stuck in customs, because very often customs is the place where it gets lost and where things go wrong. So if my package can bypass customs because everything has been paid for already, it's just pushed through the system and it gets to me a lot quicker as well. But yeah, this package, I think I ordered it Cyber Monday. It should get here around the time this video goes live. So I hope so. That's what it says on the shipping, but it hasn't moved since November 28th. So I'm a little worried that it is going to get here, because this is what happens with you, like shipping, like any package from the US. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she was experiencing this as well, where it's first like bouncing around most of the US before it is even put on a plane to Europe. Like you can see the package going from like LA to this place, to this place, to this place. Like sometimes, especially if the company I'm shopping through is from the Midwest, you can like really like see it like bouncing around the United States, and then it gets to Newark, and that's when it's finally put on a plane to Europe. And you're like, did that really need to happen? Like it's literally being just shipped around the United States for like 4 weeks before it's even like crossing the pond. Oh well. I'm thinking that's happening with my current Nomad order, but yeah, Nomad, really lovely people. I remember when I placed my second order with them, I had a nice little personalized card as well where it said, "Thank you for ordering with us again," which that level of attention to detail, like how long they can keep that up for, I don't know, but I thought that that was really lovely that they did that, like that they keep track of whether someone has ordered with them before or not. Chef's kiss for doing something attentive like that. I also have some indie brands that are perhaps a little bit more mainstream by now, but Melt is still an indie brand till this day. This is still independently owned. It's not been bought by something like L'Oreal or Estee Lauder or anything. And Melt, I think, is sort of finding its way back. A lot of people were liking their Halloween collection that they did with the Nightmare Before Christmas, and also the new Bailey Sarian collection they have out is getting a lot of hype, which I'm very happy to see, because Melt is one of my favorite all-time eyeshadow formulas. If I had to like give you like my top 10 favorite eyeshadow formulas, Melt would be on that list. Granted, I haven't tried every palette they do. I pick and choose. And some of the more problematic ones that a lot of people didn't like the 420, I've never purchased it because it's pretty much all mattes, which is my only reason for not loving Melt more than I do, is because they just tend to put in a lot of mattes. And I prefer a shimmer over a matte. So if you give me more shimmers, I'm so much happier. I think my favorite palette by them is the She's in Parties. It's quite deep and dark, but ever since it was put into a palette and it wasn't just a stack with 4 shades, they've introduced some lighter things over on this side, and those are the shades that make this palette work for me. This is also lovely cool toned, and then this is as well, so I'm loving some of those things, and then it gets a little bit more warmth and grungy over here. So for a deeper mauve tone palette, this is my go-to, and I really, really greatly appreciate it. Another thing I love about Melt is that if you make a little train of all of your palettes, you'll find that they sort of overlap. So if you have your Gemini and you have the Gemini 2, then those greens on the end kind of like, it's a little bit like, you know, like little building blocks that fit together, and I just really appreciate Melt for doing that. I could have featured the Muerte here. I could have featured the Mary Jane here. Those are like my top 3 favorite Melt palettes, but I love the Blueprint as well. I like the Millennial Pinks, which is controversial. Not a lot of people like that one, but it works quite well. Like, it's got pinks that work on my fair skin. Pinks and me, we're not the best of friends, but those pinks work. So if I want to go for the romantic Valentine's eye, I use that. But yeah, She's in Parties is another stunning color story by them. Like I said, I don't buy everything from the brand, but I have like 10 of their palettes by now, I think. And I just really, really enjoy Melt. I really, really do. And I can't wait for them to come out with something that I want to put my money towards again. But yeah, this is also one you can still buy. The Muerte, well, it's on the official Melt website again, and the Mary Jane, I think I can no longer find anywhere. So that's why I'm featuring this one, because this one you could still purchase. Now, an indie brand that I love mainly for their singles, I did a video with nothing of these Sydney Gray singles that I have in my collection that I love the most the other day. So I'll link that down below if you want to see it. But they do some really good palettes as well. However, I think that Sydney Gray's, in my brain, is just better at doing singles than putting color stories together. There's always been something with my Sydney Gray's palettes and the color story and the way it comes together that I'm like, nah, not really. However, all of their palettes are magnetic, so there's nothing in the world that holds me back from maybe taking some shades out and rearranging things if I want to in the future. I have a couple of their 9 pans. I have one 9 pan, I think. I have the Temptalia collab, and then over the summertime, I came into 2 of their larger palettes. This one, Love's Journey and Heaven on Earth. This was a gift from a lovely subscriber who allowed me to tag onto her order, you could say. And I just love Love's Journey a lot more than I had expected. I mean, I know I love my neutrals. Who am I? I mean, who am I kidding, right? But I had decided not to get this, as lovely as it looks, because I was just like, I have this a million times over in my collection. I don't need this. I have plenty of neutrals. And then I tried it and I was like, oh, but she's pretty. She's so pretty. Another thing I really appreciate about Sydney Grace is that they do all of their palettes in a light version and a dark version. So if you have deeper skin, they will give you some deeper shades to play with, especially in terms of blending shades. It's usually in the matte department that they exchange a couple of shades, but most of the shimmers are usually the same. At least that's my experience. You get warm tones, you get neutrals, and you get 2 cool tones at the bottom. The cool tones lean a little bit more purpley, which I love. The neutrals are really lovely. The only 2 shades I didn't love as I was using it were these 2 like very warm toned orangey things. That's not really my vibe. It was stunning though. I really love it. Sydney Grace is really good at doing, I would call them satin metallics. Like they have the look and the feel of a metallic shadow, but without like the creasiness and the thing where things might fall down your face. So especially if you have more mature lids and you experience a lot of creasing and you have a lot of lines going on, if you've never tried Sydney Grace, have a look, because they do some really wonderful mattes and their shimmers are impactful, but at the same time blendable, and they have the feel of a satin going onto your lid, but the impact and the shine of a metallic. I wish Sydney Grace would do some more like differences in terms of textures. It's like my only comment to them. And I would love them to not just do light and dark, but also do different undertones in some of their products. But that's mainly with their like cheek products, because I'm wearing actually some of the Sydney Grace creams that are currently in my Shop My Stash. And as lovely as they are, they don't tend to really take into account that people have like cool undertones in their skin tone. So I get light products, but if they are too orange, like the bronzer I'm wearing today, it's a hair too deep and it's a hair too orange, but it also looks a little bit reddish tone, so which is why I think it can get away with it, but especially on my forehead, I feel it doesn't look the way I'd like it to. But that just could be me. I'm still playing around with them and sort of testing them out. And sometimes I pick up a lot of product I have found and sometimes I don't. So it's probably user error at this moment, but the review isn't happening until, I think, later this week. I think I will be reviewing those cheek products that I have from Sydney Grace, but they are really, really lovely, and they do some really lovely things. I've tried some of their lip products. They have a really good range of not just eyeshadow, but for me, Sydney Grace, single eyeshadows is definitely where it's at. Next up, I think also another like favorite brand, I've described Fantasy Cosmetica as being the brand that really has this Pokemon gotta catch 'em all kind of vibe for me, because I'm currently only missing 2 of their palettes. It's the Bard and the Sorcerer. The Sorcerer is still pulling on my heartstrings, but the Bard, I just know it's too warm toned and I would never use it again. My favorite by them has to be the Rogue. I have the Fighter, I have the Druid, and I have the Warlock. The Warlock I haven't played with yet. I haven't even swatched it. Or did I? I did swatch it. I haven't played with it on my eyes though. We'll be doing that in 2024 for sure. But yeah, Fantasy Cosmetica just has some really lovely things. And one thing I love about them is that they do just really great color stories where the shimmers all have a bit of a flip, but not to the point where they become unusable. But they are very impactful, very intense shades. I love this because it's blues, greens, and purples. That's the vibe I go with. If I wear color, it's something like this. I adore this palette. It's one of my favorites this year. And I really can't wait to see what Fantasy Cosmetica is coming out with in 2024, because I hope they keep this like train of thought going, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Another brand I love, but my favorite product by them has been discontinued, but they have come out with a new version. And it's Unearthly. Yeah, mine already says Unearthly. I have some palettes that still say Alien Cosmetics because that's how long I've been buying from them. And this is their original Fall Magic. They have come out with a new Fall Magic, and I feel it's nothing like this. However, if I look at the Sorcerer Smoke and the Fall Magic together that they came out with this fall, I'm like, yeah, if you combine, like if you take this color story apart and you expand it into the Sorcerer Smoke and the Fall Magic, I can see what they did there. But I really appreciate this. This doesn't necessarily look like something I might like. And that is definitely something that I have experienced with a lot of my Unearthly purchases, is that at first glance, I look at the color story and go like, is that gonna work for me? And then I play with it and it works so well. I mainly have some of their older things though. Ever since they've been reformulating and putting a lot of multichromes in their palettes, I have sort of lost interest because I'm not of the opinion that I need a multichrome in every palette. You know, I enjoy a flip. I enjoy a good flip, but I don't need it in every palette. And then they started releasing so much that I completely became overwhelmed and I no longer know even what they do. So Unearthly is just a little bit overwhelming with just the sheer amount of releases that they do. However, I really appreciate their formula. I love this brand. I always love seeing what they put out. Nothing really has grasped my attention to the point where I'm like, I need that. The new Dreamer collection for a minute there, I was like, I like that. But then I was like, do I need it? Not really. So I have 4 or 5 palettes by the brand and I enjoy them. The Fall Magic is my favorite. It's just grungy fall in a palette. But you can make this very wearable with these like 2 neutrals here on the end. You get some purpley things, you get some pops of color, but you can also do a very warm toned look. You can make it rosy, you can make it plummy. It's just all the fall colors in a palette, which is why I appreciate it. And I think a lot of people who are buying the newer things are also really enjoying their Sorcerer Smoke and the Fall Magic palette. The Sorcerer Smoke, kind of, but again, I don't feel I necessarily need to have it in my life. And finally, I was like, what is my 10th favorite indie brand? I was like, Shroud. And as much as I like my older Shroud palettes, ever since they've released the Moonfall, I'm like, I keep looking at this because this is a very pretty palette. The only gripe I have with Shroud is that the color stories don't always come together for me. So what I actually did over the summertime, I grabbed a bunch of my Shroud palettes and I said, let's see how they mix and match. And it went swimmingly. I really enjoy this together with the Arcana. This together with my Hello, the Beauty Bean, It's Freaking Bats. Love them. Love them together. But as a standalone palette, as it is, I just feel like, oh, I can do a look with this, I can do a look with this, and I can do a look with, like, you know what I mean? I just feel it's a little bit limited because the undertones, like this is far too warm tone to go with the purple. So it never truly fully comes together for me. But overall, I really like it. Their shimmers are really stunning. 5 mattes, 4 shimmers in here. They have a beautiful, beautiful formula. And if I'm not mistaken, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4 of these brands are available through Monolith. Those brands are all available on Monolith, so if you don't want to pay the shipping and handling fees, then you can go through there. Monolith sometimes does up the price a little bit to account for the shipping and handling fees, and they also have a shipping fee, but I think you can get free shipping over 100 euros. So it's perhaps best to like save up and that you have a couple of things you'd like and then place the order. That's definitely how I've been doing it for the past couple of times, and it's been just far easier to get the Fantasy Cosmetica things through there, I find. However, it does take some time for Monolith to announce their drops. Follow them on Instagram in order to know when the next drop is going to happen, because that's where they tend to announce those things a little bit more than they do on their website, just so you know. So yeah, those were my top 10 favorite indie brands. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video today. Thank you so very much for joining me. I will be back very, very soon with a new video, and then I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!